Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Now before I start, as you can see, I have my Bristol City Football Club jacket on. Anyone who watches my videos, anyone who knows me in the WhatsApp groups knows I am an avid follower of football and I talk about it a lot. Now this is my favourite team, Bristol City, and I'm wearing the jacket. So anyone who's from England, who's from the UK, have probably heard of them. Anyone who's not from England, not from the UK, probably haven't heard of them because we're not very good and we're not in the top league. And I follow them everywhere. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of them. And if you have heard of them, please leave a comment. So I'm not alone. But anyway, yesterday I visited the War Rooms, Churchill's War Rooms in London. And I did it because I'm fascinated in history, war history. I find it all quite fascinating, quite surreal, quite eye-opening. And I think it's important to visit these places because we take life for granted if we're not careful. You know, we might moan about the most trivial of stuff or any slight thing that's going wrong in our lives. We might be very negative towards. And we might just be, can't be bothered, or always looking for the easy way, always looking for a quick fix, always looking for the comfort trap. Now, when you go to places like that, it opens your eyes to, wow, the struggle during war. Of course, I understand there's wars going on in the world, but the war I'm talking about here is obviously the World War II. And it really sort of cast your mind back to how difficult life must have been then. You know, all the different things that happened, all the different scenarios, the different situations, the different decisions that had to be made. It really does open your eyes. So, like I said, I went there yesterday. Really surreal experience. I took a lot of photos. If you follow the OCD Recovery Instagram page, there are photos on there of me outside the map room, the war cabinet room. And as I'm walking down, and as you walk in, there's a bomb on the roof, and it shows the sheer size of it. You know, the sheer destruction that would have caused, the devastation that would have caused if that directly hit something, if it hit a building, hit a group of individuals, hit a vehicle. You know, you can really see like how much damage that would have caused. And when I see things like that, it's like, wow, it just immediately goes, bloody hell. Like, imagine living life, imagine living day to day, not knowing that could just land on you, that could just hit you at any time. And it really, for perspective and gratitude, what we talk about a lot, we don't quite realise how lucky we are. Now, obviously, no wars are going on in the current world, I get that, but I'm talking about in the UK and in the US and things like that, where we have the comfort of our own homes. And you see people still quite negative towards the most trivial stuff, or just, for example, OCD recovery, how much work that takes, and not putting in the work, can't be bothered to put in the work, half-heartedly putting in the work, putting it off till tomorrow, and just going back to the comfort trap, going back to an easy, lazy, undisciplined, demotivating life. And that's not to down anyone, because that was me. I was in those shoes. I lived like that for years, where I kept putting off recovery work until tomorrow. Kept putting off until I was ready. But that didn't get me anywhere, okay? I had to leave the comfort zone. That ain't easy. The amount of discomfort that involves is a lot, right? Takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of persistence. Times where you feel like you're not making any progress. Sometimes times where you feel like you're getting worse. I had that many times. And that left me with a lot of confusion, a lot of doubt, with OCD on top as well, the doubting disorder. So I doubt on top of that. So yeah, it was a really difficult, challenging time. But I'm so thankful that I put in the work. I'm so thankful that I took a step out of my comfort zone, because recovery isn't easy, right? It's not impossible, but it's certainly not easy. And it's harder than we want it to be, but it's not rocket science, okay? Taking it step by step, like we do on the channel, all the coaches here, all the moderators, taking it step by step. The advice you get on the YouTube channel, the webinars, the one-to-one calls, the real talks, WhatsApp groups, really good advice in there. Taking each bit by bit, each step of the journey, because it can feel very alone, a very isolating journey. Anyway, I was talking about Churchill's War Rooms, wasn't I? And I've gone off on a tangent. But going back to my experience there. Now, I do a lot of reading, taking it all in. And when I'm reading it, I really put myself in that position, okay? Because it's easy just to read a bit of writing on the wall. It's easy to read a book and just not really take it in. When I'm in there, I'm thinking, wow, like, imagine me, imagine myself, imagine anyone in that situation now, right? And all the decisions that must have had to be made, all that. We talk about discomfort, but we don't talk about it lightly because could you imagine that? You know, some of the decisions that especially Churchill would have had to have made, very high pressured, high responsibility, you know, lives are at line, hundreds of thousands of lives are at stake here. um, Very intense, very critical, you know, and a lot of disagreement, a lot of conflict, a lot of heated debate. It's not just debates about what food you're going to have tonight, or you know, the stuff that we debate now, or what's the best TV show, or who's the best artist, who's the best rapper in the world, you know, who's the best football team. All these debates that get quite angry now. You think about things like that, like wow, like look what's on the line there. Now, and this is why when we adopt new rational outlooks, when we apply rational alternatives compared to the irrational beliefs that we hold, usually when we first come on the journey, what's keeping us stuck. But when we look at it, and I can see how those decisions that were made at the time were very thoughtful. You know, there was a lot of debate. Ray Dalio talks about a lot in his book about how the importance and the benefits of having thoughtful disagreement, right? Because you can't just make a decision. Well, you can, but I wouldn't advise making a decision when you're closed-minded, when you're not seeing the other perspective, right? Because it's so easy to see life through your lens, to see the decision through your lens, to see the potential outcome through your lens. But the blind spot usually is what you don't know about. And that can come from the insight of other people, you know, criticism, right? Healthy criticism. That can be great. Although we don't like to hear that as humans, we don't want to hear negative feedback or you could improve this, you're better at this. But I needed that. And I'm sure anyone who is successful needs that. Right, as Ray Dalio talks about in his book Principles, his book that Nick rants and raves about a lot. I know Rob's read it. And it's a very good book for when we make mistakes and then just learning from the mistake, seeing what the problem was, seeing how we can overcome that problem and all the obstacles and adversities in life, looking at ways around it, or just not being stuck and not just dwelling on mistakes, you know, seeing negatives, seeing setbacks, seeing mistakes, seeing relapses as a chance to overcome, an obstacle to overcome, to perform better, okay? Now, that's such a key mindset towards OCD. But anyway, going back to the point on Churchill's war rooms. Now, I often think about, like, could you imagine sort of the how intense the emotions must have been at that time? You know, London would have been currently getting bombed overhead. And then you're just thinking, wow, like, we've got to make these decisions now. I mean, it's urgent decisions, urgent, you know, history-altering decisions. And it's just like, and you think about some of the decisions that you make in your day-to-day life now, and they can feel like huge decisions. But then you suddenly need to cast your mind back to that, and you're thinking, bloody hell, instant perspective shift right away. I went in the map room where they would, there was pins all on the maps everywhere. That is where they could note or mark where enemy raids or enemy ships were coming from. And then they're constantly monitoring it. And that had to be done by 9 a.m. each morning. And that had to be reported to the King, to the Prime Minister, and also the Chief of Staff. So everyone was aware, everyone was updated what was going on. Could you imagine the fear of mistakes then? The fear of responsibility? So for example, if you put the pin in the wrong place, or if the information got miscommunicated, and it turns out, or you're blaming yourself. Imagine with OCD back then. Could you imagine that? Where it's the responsibility aspect ramped up. But if you put this pin in the wrong place, you could cause the destruction of so many people's lives, or you know, the world could change, or a whole island could be destroyed because of your one mistake. Could you imagine that? Think about OCD back then. And with OCD, A, it probably wouldn't have been diagnosed. B, no idea how to get better. And can you imagine meeting someone else with OCD? The chances of that were very, very slim. to impossible, I would say, because if you didn't know what it was, how could you meet someone with it? You might by chance meet someone, but they ain't going to know what OCD was, even though you might have been having the similar doubts or similar thoughts or similar feelings. But to know what it was OCD, very, very slim chance. So yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience. If you can go, I'd recommend going in London. Churchill's War Rooms, very, very great excellent for perspective shifts and gratitude shifts. You can really put yourself in their shoes in that kind of decision making, how the emotions must have been flowing at the time, all the mixed emotions, all the heated arguments, people getting quite angry, people getting very nervous. Very fearful. You can only imagine. I can't even comprehend what it must have been like at that time. But anyway, I went with a friend who he'd only just come back from Auschwitz. He's also into his history as well, and he'd just come back from Auschwitz. And straight away, he was telling me, he was showing me pictures somewhere I'd love to go, because I'm so interested in history. And I thought, well, imagine that must have been such an eerie experience. I know people who else with OCD that have gone as well, and they often talk about the experience. And I'm just thinking, like, wow, like anything that goes wrong in my life now, anything that's just a pain in the ass, another one of those things I like to label it as, just a pain in the ass, how can we overcome it? Just got to deal with it. That mindset of let's just deal with it, right? But when you think about that, the concentration camps, the death camps, and you're like, bloody hell. People will moan about not having food and things like that. Of course, I'm not talking about starvation. I'm not talking about famine. I'm just talking about going a couple of hours hungry, right? Not even hungry, just haven't ate, right? For example, yesterday, we was in a rush and we didn't have time to have lunch. So I ate, say, 7 a.m. in the morning. I didn't then eat until 6 o'clock in the evening, right? Now, you could easily sit and moan and go, I'm hungry. I want some food. I'm hungry. But then, if I was about to say I'm hungry, I think, could you imagine people in those concentration camps in Auschwitz? How can I sit and moan that I'm hungry because I've got to wait another hour for my KFC? I've got to wait another hour for my roast dinner. I've got to wait another hour before I can sit down and have a glass of wine and a sirloin steak. And you see these things, and I get why people moan. It's understandable, but straight away, when you see things like that, when you have a more rational outlook, right, when you see things in a different light, because without OCD, without the suffering, without the journey of OCD, I wouldn't see life like that. I was very irrational, very rigid, very black and white, very judgy, writing people off, one mistake, scumbag, I was like that, right? So it took me ages, it took me at least 2 years, and you're probably not going to want to hear that, but I would say 2 years until I started grasping unconditional acceptance fully, right? I understood the principles of it when I first read the book, Myth of Self-Esteem, but actually grasping, actually embodying it, the philosophy, that took at least 2 years to fully believe it, right? Because yes, you have to believe it, you have to read it, but you have to actually see things, right? You have to actually practice it, okay? So such a key point when I talk about patience, all right? Because it's not going to be overnight fix. These things take a little while. But the long-term goal, long-term freedom, it is so worth to get through the discomfort now for that long-term freedom of recovery, the long-term aim of recovery. But yeah, if I go back to talk about the Auschwitz experience that my friend went to, he showed me some of the ghettos, and he showed me a picture of a wall, right? And this wall was where people were shot if they were no longer any good, right? No longer could work. And these people were shot. Now, I'm no expert in history, I'm no expert in what went on, but that you don't need to be an expert to understand. Like, could you imagine that, right? And it's just by someone's choice, right? Someone goes, right, you go that way, and you're no good, you can't work, shot. And not only that, losing your family, seeing your family killed in front of your eyes. Now, this is why Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, that's why that book's on the reading list. Because it opens your eyes to a completely different perspective. And this is why I don't moan about the small things. I don't moan. I'm human, right? I'm going to get pissed off by things. Someone could cut me up whilst driving. I'm going to get pissed off for 5 seconds, right? Because I'm human. I can quickly and quite easily snap back into a new rational, calm mindset. But when you see things like that, you're like, how can I moan about it's raining outside? Yes, it's annoying it's raining, but I've got a big, fat, warm, fluffy coat on, right? A waterproof coat. You know, I'm nice and warm. I get into a nice warm house, a nice warm car. You know, I can sit down and get home and have a roast dinner. I can go down the pub, I can go to a restaurant and have a roast dinner. I can have a beer, I can have a glass of wine, right? I'm not having to walk 50 miles through a blizzard, freezing cold snow with no shoes on, with all the different diseases and ailments and illnesses that come with that. And you just can't get your head around it when you think about it. Now, I don't want this video to be all doom and gloom and just talk about how bad that was. Of course it was very bad. But it's so important to look at it, how lucky we are to live in this day and age, right? The chance that you have of recovery, right? When we just talk about OCD, because we didn't have that. You know, I've already touched on that in this video. If you didn't even know what OCD was, how on earth would you recover from it, right? You wouldn't have a clue what the tools were, okay? So just think about that and how lucky we really are. When you're saying things like, I can't stand this, oh, I hate them, or I hate OCD, I hate anxiety. That would be the worst thing in the world. I can't possibly stand that. That would be unbearable. I'd rather be dead if this was the case. I'd rather be dead if that was the case. You know, jail would be the worst thing in the world. And that, you know, if I lost connection to life, if I never felt love again, if I could never enjoy anything again, that would be utterly terrible. I couldn't possibly stand that. Yes, you wouldn't like that. But when you think of things like that in the war, in concentration camps, in Auschwitz, you're thinking, bloody hell, is it really unbearable? When you think what some people went through, you know, imagine the no hope, the complete hopelessness, right? So even if you kept going and going and going, you could have been shot any moment, and it's just like, bloody hell. So it's really important to think about these things in terms of going towards recovery work and in terms of facing problems during day-to-day life, you know. Life ain't easy. Life throws all sorts of challenges your way. You know, you could wake up tomorrow and you could have lost a loved one. You could wake up tomorrow and you find your house has been burgled. You could wake up tomorrow with a serious illness. You could wake up tomorrow and your boss calls you and said you've been sacked. You know, you could have lost all your money, things like that, right? Of course, not very nice things. And of course, I wouldn't like that, of course, except as an agreement, right? I don't bloody want those things. But what would help me deal with those things, and what's given me the tools to help deal with those things, is seeing things like that, Churchill's war rooms, Auschwitz concentration camp. You know, you put yourself going, bloody hell, it really could be a lot worse, right? And you see some current affairs going on in the world, and you think, wow, it could really be a lot worse, right? So always bear that in mind when we're very negative, when we vent, when we moan, when we complain, when we whine, right? Because it's so easy to go down that venting trap. I spent years down that trap, but just remember all these things that I've spoken about in this video. All right, so I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like. If you're interested in any of our one-to-one services, webinar services, I'm talking on a webinar on the 12th of December. Please email phil@ocdrecovery.com if you are interested in booking a space. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then please do so. And any suggestions for future videos for me, please leave a comment. Anyway, you take care. I hope you've liked my jumper, and I'll speak again. Bye-bye.